The sky burned with fire when the Vera ship came down. It was not the fire of war, but the flames of a wounded vessel struggling to stay in the air. The ship's metal body groaned and split as it tore through the thick clouds of the planet below. Each moment was a battle against gravity, and each passing second the craft lost more of its strength. Inside, a warrior sat locked in her armor, hands tight on the controls, eyes sharp with focus. Her name was Lyra. She was no ordinary soldier. Among the Vera, she had been trained since youth to wear the heavy armor that marked her rank. The armor was a symbol of strength, a shield against the enemy, and the very heart of her identity. Yet now it weighed her down more than ever. Every joint was locked, every plate pressed against her body with suffocating force. The system inside the armor warned her of low power, of heat rising, of failure in key systems. She ignored the alarms. Her only thought was to survive the crash. The ship struck the ground with a thunderous roar. Dirt and stone exploded into the air as the hull broke apart. Lyra felt her seat jolt, the world turning over in chaos. Then came silence. She lay still in the wreck, her armor sparking, her breathing heavy. The once mighty warrior was now a broken figure surrounded by the ruins of her craft. Far from the crash, a small human settlement lay hidden among the trees. Few in the galaxy even remembered that humans had spread this far. They were survivors who lived quietly, building homes of wood and stone rather than towers of steel. Among them was a man named Aaron. He was no soldier, no commander, but he carried the steady strength of someone who had seen hardship and endured it. He was working near the forest when he heard the crash. The sound shook the ground beneath his feet. Without hesitation, he ran toward the rising smoke. When Aaron reached the wreck, he was met by heat and silence. The ship was twisted, bent into shapes that no engineer would ever recognize. He scanned the wreckage and then saw her. A tall figure in armor, silver and black, lay half buried beneath broken metal. At first, he thought it was an empty machine. Then he saw her chest rise and fall. A living being was trapped inside. Cautiously, Aaron climbed over the shattered frame and approached. The armor was unlike anything he had seen before. It glowed faintly, with cracks running across its surface where sparks jumped like tiny lightning. The warrior inside was still breathing, but her breaths were weak. Aaron bent down, brushing away debris from her helmet. The visor was cracked, revealing a glimpse of her eyes. They were sharp, filled with pain yet burning with defiance. Even in this broken state, she did not look defeated. "Stay still," Aaron said calmly. His voice was steady, though he doubted she understood his words. He reached for the armor, trying to see how it opened, but the suit rejected him. The system hissed and a low hum rose, warning him to stay back. It was as if the armor itself refused to let him near. Lyra tried to move, but the weight of the suit held her down. Every attempt to rise only drained her more. She stared at the human with confusion. Why would he approach her? Why would he risk himself for a stranger from the sky? She wanted to speak, to demand he leave, but her voice failed. Only a faint sound came through her broken helmet. Aaron noticed her struggle. He pressed a hand against the armor where it sparked the most. The heat bit into his skin, but he did not draw back. He had repaired machines before, though none like this. He knew one thing for certain: if she remained inside this broken shell, she would not live long. The armor that once protected her was now her prison. Others from the settlement arrived soon after. They whispered in fear, some urging Aaron to leave the stranger, warning that she might be dangerous. But Aaron shook his head. She is alive. That is enough reason. His tone carried no doubt. He had seen too many beings die from being abandoned. He would not let it happen again. Together, they worked to pull the wreckage aside. Piece by piece, they cleared the debris until the armored figure lay free on the ground. The weight of her suit made it difficult to move her, so they built a sled of wood and rope, dragging her back through the forest. All the while, Lyra drifted in and out of consciousness. Shadows of trees passed over her visor, and voices surrounded her, strange yet steady. Her people had taught her to fear outsiders, but she felt no fear now. Only exhaustion. When they reached the village, the humans laid her beneath a roof of timber. A fire was lit nearby, its warmth chasing away the cold night. Aaron stayed close, examining the strange suit again. He noticed how the armor's power flickered, draining with each passing moment. It was not just damaged, it was killing her. If nothing was done, the suit would crush her spirit before her body gave out. As the night stretched on, Lyra's eyes opened again. She saw Aaron sitting near her, tools in hand, studying the locks of her armor. His face was calm, patient, not filled with greed or cruelty. She tried to lift her arm, but the suit denied her. She let out a sound that was half a word, half a cry. Aaron looked at her and gave a small nod. "You are safe here," he said. The words were simple, and though she did not know his language, something in his tone reached her. It was not the sound of a warrior. It was the sound of someone who refused to give up on her life. For the first time since her ship had fallen, Lyra felt something strange. Not fear. Not duty. But the faint spark of trust. She closed her eyes again, knowing the human watched over her. She had survived the fall, but she knew this was only the beginning. Her armor was failing. Her strength was fading. And yet, deep inside, she wondered if perhaps the burden she carried could finally be lifted. Morning light crept into the village, breaking through the wooden walls of the shelter. The fire outside still smoldered, sending thin smoke into the cool air. Aaron sat near the armored stranger, watching carefully as she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, sharp but clouded with weakness. She turned her head, studying the humans who moved about their village. Children carried water, women prepared food, men repaired fences and tools. None of them wore armor. None of them carried advanced weapons. They lived with simple strength, yet their steps carried purpose. Lyra shifted her arm, but the armor resisted. Sparks hissed across her chest plate, warning of failing systems. She clenched her teeth. For the Vera, armor was not just metal. It was part of the body, linked to the warrior's heart. To remove it was to strip away honor and identity. She had sworn to never let it be taken from her. But now it was slowly crushing her. Aaron noticed her struggle. He leaned closer, speaking in his calm, steady voice. "The armor is broken. It hurts you." His words were simple, and though Lyra did not understand every sound, his tone carried meaning. She shook her head, trying to push his hand away, but the weight of the suit held her down. Her pride screamed at her to resist, yet her body cried for relief. The humans brought food, a simple bowl of broth, but the armor blocked her arms from moving. Aaron carefully lifted the bowl and held it near her visor. She turned away at first, but her hunger betrayed her. Aaron tapped the cracked visor, then showed her the spoon. His patience never wavered. Slowly, she allowed him to tilt the spoon through the gap in her helmet. Warm broth touched her lips, and she drank. It was a small act, yet it carried a strange power. For the first time, she accepted help from a human. Afterward, Aaron set the bowl aside and studied the locks on her chest plate. He pulled a small tool from his pouch and pressed it against the glowing seams. The armor sparked, pushing his hand back. He frowned. The system was fighting him. "It drains your strength," he said firmly. "If we do not remove it, you will not live." His eyes met hers, steady as stone. She felt the truth in his gaze. Still, she shook her head. She whispered in her own tongue, voice weak but filled with stubbornness. "No. Without armor, I am nothing." The words were broken to his ears, yet the tone was clear. She feared weakness more than death. Aaron sat back for a moment. He did not force her. Instead, he picked up a piece of wood and began carving with his knife. The sound of blade on wood filled the shelter. He worked quietly, shaping the piece into the figure of a bird. Lyra watched, confused. Why did he waste time on such a thing? When he finished, he set the small wooden bird beside her. "Strength is not in steel," he said. "It is in the hands that build, not only the hands that fight." She turned her head away, unwilling to admit his words touched her. But the thought stayed in her mind. Was strength truly only in armor? Or could it exist elsewhere? That night, when the village grew quiet, the armor grew heavier. Heat built inside the suit, her chest rising and falling with effort. Her vision blurred. She tried to lift her arm but failed. The system no longer obeyed her. Panic rose. She had lived her entire life trusting the armor, and now it betrayed her. Her breath came fast, trapped behind the heavy plates. Aaron entered the shelter when he heard her shallow gasps. He knelt beside her, placing his hand gently on her arm. "It is killing you," he said. His voice was calm, but firm as stone. "You must let me take it away." She shook her head weakly, tears of frustration burning in her eyes. To strip the armor meant to strip her pride, her heritage, her place among the Vera. But Aaron's eyes held no judgment, only determination to keep her alive. He reached for the locks again. This time she did not stop him. Her strength was gone, and deep inside, she knew he was right. He pressed the tool into the seam, twisting until sparks flew. The lock cracked open with a hiss. A heavy plate fell to the ground. Lyra gasped as air touched her skin for the first time in years. The weight lifted slightly, but her heart raced. She was exposed, vulnerable. Aaron did not rush. One by one, he found the hidden catches, releasing the pieces. Each plate clattered to the wooden floor. With every piece removed, Lyra felt lighter, yet more unguarded. Her body shook, not from weakness alone, but from fear. She had never stood without armor. She had never let anyone see her as she truly was. To the Vera, this was shame. But Aaron did not laugh, did not sneer, did not look at her as if she was broken. He only worked, steady and patient, his eyes never leaving hers. When the last piece came free, the armor lay in a broken heap beside her. Lyra sat trembling, her body weak but free. She touched her arm, feeling her own skin beneath simple cloth. She had forgotten this sensation. She looked at Aaron, her lips parting as if to speak, but no words came. Only silence stretched between them. Aaron placed a blanket over her shoulders. "Now you can heal," he said simply. His voice carried no pride, no demand, only truth. She stared at him, struggling to understand. This human had taken away the very thing she thought defined her, yet she felt no anger. She felt only relief. For the first time, the crushing weight was gone. Outside, the village lived on, unaware of the change that had taken place in the shelter. The sky was clear, the stars sharp above the trees. Among those stars lay the Vera, who would never understand what had happened here. But Lyra understood. Something within her had shifted. She was no longer only a warrior bound by armor. She was something else, though she did not yet know what. And it frightened her as much as it freed her. The night was long, but for the first time since her crash, Lyra slept without the crushing weight of her armor. Her body trembled as if it could not accept freedom. She woke often, startled by the cool air against her skin, but each time she opened her eyes she saw Aaron sitting nearby. His calm presence steadied her heart. He never left the shelter, keeping watch like a guardian. When dawn broke, the village stirred to life. Children laughed outside, their voices bright as birds. The sound was strange to Lyra. Among the Vera, children were trained to fight early, and laughter was rare. Yet here, these small ones ran without fear, chasing each other through the dust, carrying sticks as if they were mighty weapons. Lyra watched from the shadows of the shelter, her heart uncertain. Could a people so unguarded truly survive? Aaron brought her food again, a bowl of warm broth with bread. Without her armor, she could lift her hands, though they were weak. She held the bowl shakily, spilling some of it on the blanket. The simple act of eating with her own hands felt strange, almost shameful. She had lived so long with machines feeding her inside the armor that she had forgotten how it felt to lift food to her mouth. Aaron noticed her struggle but did not laugh. He simply guided her hand gently, steadying the bowl. Slowly, he said. His voice was patient, without judgment. Lyra swallowed hard. She wanted to push his hand away, to prove she was strong, but her weakness betrayed her. So she allowed his support, even though her pride ached. After the meal, Aaron stepped outside, returning with a bundle of simple clothes. A tunic and trousers, woven from rough cloth. He set them beside her without a word. Lyra looked at them with hesitation. To wear such clothing felt like lowering herself, but she could not remain under a blanket forever. With effort, she dressed. The cloth felt light compared to her armor, but also fragile. For the first time, she felt the breeze touch her arms. It unsettled her, but deep inside, a spark of freedom stirred. As she stepped outside for the first time, the villagers stared. Their eyes were not filled with hatred, but with caution. They had seen her fall from the sky wrapped in steel, and now she stood among them as something different. Whispers spread. Some called her dangerous. Others pitied her. Lyra held her head high, though her body was weak. The instinct of a warrior refused to let her show fear. Aaron walked beside her, steady and unshaken. "You are among friends," he told her. His voice was quiet, but his tone was firm enough to silence some of the whispers. Lyra did not answer. She scanned the village with sharp eyes, noting its defenses, its weaknesses, and its strength. These humans did not build walls of steel, but walls of trust. It was something she did not understand. The children were the first to approach. A small boy carried the wooden bird Aaron had carved. He held it out to her with a shy smile. Lyra stared at the toy, her lips pressing tight. In her world, children offered blades, not birds. She reached out slowly, her fingers brushing the wood. For a moment, her chest tightened. This simple gift felt heavier than any weapon she had ever held. That night, as the village gathered for a meal, Lyra sat apart, her eyes on the fire. Aaron joined her, setting a piece of bread in her hand. "You are still thinking about your armor," he said quietly. She did not answer. Her gaze stayed on the flames. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "The armor was my life. Without it, I am nothing." The words cut her like a blade, but they were true to what she had been taught. Aaron shook his head. "You are alive without it? That means you are something more." Lyra turned sharply, anger rising. "You do not understand. To the Vera, armor is honor. It is who we are. Without it, we are broken." Aaron met her glare calmly. "Maybe your people are wrong. Maybe armor only hides who you are." His words stung. She wanted to argue, to shout, but no answer came. Deep inside, she remembered how the armor had pressed on her chest, stealing her breath, feeding her false strength. She remembered the moment it was stripped away and the strange relief that had followed. She hated to admit it, but his words carried truth. The days passed slowly. Lyra remained in the village, too weak to leave. She began to walk short distances, her steps unsteady at first. Aaron often walked beside her, guiding her through the forest paths. She learned how the humans gathered food, how they fished in the river, how they built with wood and stone instead of machines. At first, she thought it foolish. But over time, she saw the wisdom in their ways. They survived not with steel but with unity. One afternoon, Aaron led her to a field outside the village. "Try without armor," he said, handing her a simple wooden staff. Lyra frowned. "A stick is not a weapon." "Then show me," Aaron replied. She tightened her grip and swung. At first, her movements were clumsy without the guidance of her armor. She stumbled, her balance off. Frustration burned in her chest. She threw the staff down, breathing hard. "I am weak," she growled. Aaron picked up the staff and handed it back. "You are learning. Weakness is not the end. It is the beginning." His words struck her harder than any blow. She lifted the staff again. This time her movements grew sharper. She used her body, not the weight of steel, to strike. Sweat ran down her skin, but her steps grew stronger. By the end, she stood taller, chest rising with pride. She had fought without armor, and though clumsy, she had not fallen. That night, she sat by the fire in silence, staring at her hands. They were raw, blistered from gripping the staff. Yet she felt something she had not felt in years. It was not the false strength of her armor. It was her own. The broken armor still lay in the shelter, silent and cold. Each time she looked at it, her heart twisted. It had been her shield, her prison, her very identity. Now it was only dead metal. She thought of Aaron's words again. Maybe armor only hides who you are. As the stars spread across the night sky, Lyra realized the truth. The human had not only stripped away her steel. He had stripped away her fear. For the first time, she was exposed. And for the first time, she was free. Days turned into weeks, and Lyra grew stronger. At first, her steps were weak and shaky, but with time her body remembered how to move without the crushing weight of armor. She began walking longer paths through the forest, guided by Aaron and sometimes followed by curious children. Each step tested her pride, but she did not fall. Every day she discovered how much she could endure on her own. The humans lived simply, yet their lives were full. They had no machines to guard them, no steel walls to hide behind. Still, they survived. They farmed their fields, fished in the river, and built with their hands. Lyra studied them closely. Among her people, survival meant battle. Among humans, survival meant unity. She watched how they worked together without commands from a leader. One man cut wood, another carried it, another shaped it into planks, and together they built homes. Their strength came not from armor, but from trust. One morning, Aaron invited her to join the hunters. They carried bows and spears instead of rifles. Lyra frowned when she saw the weapons. To her eyes, they looked weak, like toys. Yet she followed. The hunters moved silently through the forest, their steps light on the soil. They watched the wind, the trees, and the movements of animals. Lyra noticed how they used patience, not speed, to win. Hours passed without a sound. Finally, a deer stepped into the clearing. The hunters raised their bows. An arrow flew, striking true. The animal fell, and the hunters bowed their heads in respect before carrying it back. Lyra was silent the whole way back. In her world, food was grown in metal farms or gathered by machines. Hunting was for survival in old times, not for warriors. Yet here she had seen humans take life with care, not greed. They killed only what they needed. It unsettled her, but it also taught her. Strength was not always in fire and destruction. Sometimes it was in restraint. In the evenings, Aaron sparred with her in the field outside the village. At first, she used the staff he had given her. Her movements were heavy, filled with the habits of someone who relied too long on armor. Aaron moved lightly, stepping aside from her strikes, never striking harder than he had to. Strength is not in force, he said during their practice. It is in balance. She grew angry many times when he bested her. Her pride urged her to grab her broken armor and fight as a true Vara warrior. But each time she fell, Aaron helped her stand, repeating the same lesson. Strength is not only in what you can break. It is in what you can build. One evening, as the fire burned bright in the center of the village, a storm rolled across the land. Wind howled, shaking the wooden homes. Roofs lifted, walls cracked, and rain poured down in sheets. The villagers rushed together, pulling ropes, holding beams, and tying down what they could. Aaron joined them without hesitation, pushing against the storm with bare hands. Lyra stood in the rain, frozen. Her armor would have made her unshakable in such weather, but she had none now. She felt naked against the fury of the storm. Then she saw a child struggling to hold a door shut as the wind pushed against it. Without thinking, Lyra ran forward. She pressed her body against the wood, holding it steady with all her strength. The child stared up at her, wide-eyed but safe. In that moment, Lyra realized she did not need armor to shield others. Her own hands, her own body, were enough. When the storm finally passed, the village was battered but still standing. The people cheered as they looked over the homes that had survived. Aaron clapped Lyra on the shoulder. "You held firm," he said with a small smile. She said nothing, but inside her heart shifted. The pride she once tied to armor now connected to something new. She had stood with the humans, and she had not failed. As days passed, she began to join them in their work. She learned to carry wood, to fish, and even to help repair roofs. At first, her movements were clumsy, but the villagers guided her patiently. She discovered how different strength felt when it was shared. No one stood above the others, no one claimed glory, and yet the village grew strong together. At night, when the stars spread across the sky, Lyra sometimes sat with Aaron outside the shelter. She would glance at the broken armor lying untouched in the corner. "My people will never understand this," she said one night. Her voice was low, almost bitter. "They believe only in the armor. Without it, I am less than nothing." Aaron looked at her, his face calm. "Maybe one day they will learn. Maybe you will be the one to show them." His words struck her, though she did not reply. She had been raised to follow, never to lead. But the thought that she could carry this lesson back to her people lingered in her heart. One morning, the children asked her to join their games. They gave her a stick and asked her to chase them. At first, she resisted. A warrior did not play. But their laughter was bright, and their eyes hopeful. She ran with them, stumbling, laughing against her will. For the first time since childhood, she felt joy without duty. Aaron watched from a distance, smiling faintly. That night, she could not sleep. She thought of her people, bound in armor, chained by tradition. She thought of the humans, free and unarmored, yet strong in ways her people could not see. She realized the armor had not only weighed her body. It had weighed her spirit. Aaron had stripped it away, leaving her exposed in more ways than one. Now she could feel, see, and understand more than she ever had. But deep inside, fear still burned. Her people would not leave her alone forever. Sooner or later, they would come searching. And when they did, they would not look kindly upon her choice to stand without armor. She wondered if she would be ready for that day. For now, she sat by the fire, listening to the voices of the villagers, watching the flames dance. She was no longer only a Vera warrior. She was something else, though the shape of it was not yet clear. But she knew one thing. Whatever came, she would not walk the path alone. The days of quiet living did not last. Though the forest hid the village well, the wreck of Lyra's ship had sent out a signal when it crashed. Far beyond the stars, the Vera had not forgotten their warrior. To them, she was missing, and to lose a soldier was shame. A search party was sent, armed and ready, not only to recover her but also to erase any witness. Lyra felt it before anyone else. One evening, as she stood on the edge of the forest, she looked at the sky and saw the faint glow of ships cutting through the atmosphere. Her heart grew heavy. She knew the Vera had come. She returned to the village, her face pale. "They are here," she told Aaron. Her voice was calm but sharp with fear. Aaron studied her eyes. "Your people?" She nodded. "They will not come with kindness. They will see this village as a threat. They will destroy it if I remain." The villagers gathered as Aaron explained. Fear rippled through them. Many had never seen warships before. They asked if they should run, but Lyra shook her head. "Running will not save you. They will track you anywhere. They are warriors, trained to fight until nothing remains." Aaron looked around at his people. "Then we stand together." His voice was steady, though he knew they were outmatched. Lyra felt her heart twist. She had trained her whole life to fight beside her people, not against them. But the thought of letting the humans fall burned inside her. They had sheltered her, fed her, and shown her a way of life she had never known. She could not abandon them now. That night, the village prepared. They built barricades from wood and stone. They sharpened spears and checked bows. It was simple defense, nothing compared to the weapons of the Vera, but it was all they had. Lyra walked among them, her steps heavy with doubt. Without armor, she felt naked. Her people would look at her and see only weakness. She entered the shelter where her broken armor still lay. The plates were cracked, the systems dead. She touched the cold metal with trembling fingers. For years it had been her life, her pride. Part of her longed to climb inside again, to feel its weight, to face her people as they expected her to. Yet she remembered the suffocating grip, the pain it had caused, and Aaron's words. Strength is not in steel. It is in what you build. She turned away, leaving the armor behind. The next day, the Vera arrived. Their ship landed in the clearing near the wreck of Lyra's old vessel. Warriors stepped out, tall figures wrapped in shining armor. Their movements were heavy but full of power. The ground shook under their steps. The villagers watched from a distance, fear written on their faces. The leader of the Vera, a warrior named Rin, called out with a voice that echoed through the trees. Lyra of the Vera. You have been found. Step forward. Return to your people, and all will be forgiven. Lyra stepped out from the village, her head held high though her body trembled. She wore only the simple human cloth, no armor, no weapons but a wooden staff in her hand. The Vera leader froze at the sight, his visor gleaming. What is this? He demanded. You stand bare? You shame us. Put on your armor at once. I will not, Lyra answered. Her voice was steady, though her heart pounded. The armor is broken. And so is the way of our people. I have seen another path. Gasps came from the Vera warriors. To reject the armor was betrayal. Ren raised his weapon. Then you are no longer Vera. You are nothing. The villagers stepped forward then, spears and bows in hand. Aaron stood beside Lyra, his face calm but unyielding. She is not nothing, he said. She is more than the steel you put on her. She is alive, and she stands with us. The leader of the Vero laughed coldly. Humans. Weak, fragile, unworthy. You will all fall. With that, the battle began. The Vero moved like shadows of iron, their armor making them nearly unbreakable. The villagers fought with all they had, striking with arrows and spears, but many blows bounced harmlessly off metal plates. Lyra leapt into the fight, her wooden staff in hand. She struck where armor joined, slipping past the heavy plates. Her movements were swift, free of the weight she once carried. She danced between the armored figures, her body light, her strikes precise. Aaron fought beside her, guiding the villagers with sharp commands. They set traps in the forest paths, pits covered in branches, ropes that pulled warriors off balance. The humans could not match the Vera in strength, but they used the land, the trees, and their speed. Still, the battle was hard. Each moment tested their will. Lyra faced Rin himself, his massive blade cutting the air with deadly force. She ducked, rolled, and struck with her staff, cracking the joints of his armor. He sneered behind his visor. You fight without honor. No, Lyra answered. I fight with life. With a final strike, she drove her staff into the weak point of his chest plate. Sparks burst as his armor failed. He stumbled back, shocked. Lyra stood tall, breath heavy but proud. Seeing their leader fall, the other Vera hesitated. They looked at Lyra, at her bare form without armor, at the humans who stood unbroken beside her. Their belief wavered. How could one stripped of steel defeat a warrior bound in it? Ren rose slowly, his pride shattered. He signaled his warriors to retreat. "This is not over," he warned, his voice dark. "You have turned against your people. You will face judgment." With that, the Vaira returned to their ship and lifted into the sky, leaving the village scarred but alive. The villagers cheered, raising their weapons high. Aaron placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. She looked at him, her chest rising with deep breaths. For the first time, she had fought without armor against her own people and she had won. But her heart was not light. She knew the Vaira would return. She knew they would not forgive her. Yet as she looked at the humans around her, their faces bright with courage, she also knew this: she was no longer afraid. The battle was over, but silence did not bring peace. The village still stood, though many huts were damaged, and the forest floor carried scars from the fight. Smoke drifted in the air, and broken weapons lay scattered on the ground. The people moved through the ruins, tending to the wounded and lifting what could be saved. Lyra stood at the edge of the clearing, her staff in hand. Her eyes searched the sky where the Vaira ship had disappeared. She knew they would return, and next time they would not come with a handful of soldiers. They would bring fire and steel. Aaron joined her, his face marked with dirt but steady. "You fought with us," he said quietly. "You gave us a chance to live. For that, we owe you more than words." Lyra shook her head. "No, I gave nothing. I only took what you already had. You have courage. You have unity. Without armor, I could see it. And because of that, I could fight." Aaron studied her for a long moment. "Yet they will come again. And when they do, we cannot face them alone." Lyra knew he was right. She had once believed the Vaira could not be stopped. They were powerful, trained, and their armor made them almost impossible to defeat. But the battle had shown her something new. The humans were not weak. They were clever. They knew the land, the forest, and the ways of survival. If they learned to fight together, their spirit could match the strength of steel. That night, a council was held in the largest hut. The elders, the hunters, the healers, and the young all gathered. Lyra sat with them, though she still felt like an outsider. The fire burned in the center, and shadows flickered on their faces. An elder spoke first. "We have seen what these warriors are. They are not like us. Their weapons cut through stone. Their armor turns our spears away. How can we fight such enemies again?" A hunter raised his voice. "We fought today, and we lived. We can fight again. With traps, with fire, with courage." Another shook his head. "That was only a small band. Next time will be worse. If they bring more ships, more warriors, then what hope do we have?" The council grew restless, voices rising and falling. Lyra stood and raised her staff. The hut grew quiet. She spoke with a clear voice. "You are right. If we face them as we did today, we will fall. Their armor is strong, their weapons deadly. But they have one weakness. They cannot see beyond their steel. They do not believe in life outside it. They cannot imagine another way. That is where you are stronger." The people watched her. Some nodded, others still feared. Aaron added his voice. "She is right. We have lived with little, yet we endure. We know the land. We know each other. That is our strength." The elder asked, "Then what do you suggest?" Lyra's eyes glowed with determination. "We prepare. Not with armor, not with steel, but with unity. Every hunter, every worker, every child can play a part. We set traps deeper, we use the forest itself, and we train together. If they return, we will not stand as a village of frightened people. We will stand as one. The council grew quiet. Then, slowly, voices of agreement rose. Hope began to stir. The next days were filled with work. Lyra led the hunters to build hidden defenses in the forest. They dug pits lined with sharpened stakes, stretched ropes between trees, and crafted nets strong enough to hold armored warriors. The healers prepared herbs not just for wounds but for smoke bombs that could blind enemies. The children carried stones and sharpened sticks. Every person found a task. Aaron stayed by Lyra's side, guiding the work. He watched her move among the people, teaching them to fight in ways they had never known. Without armor, her movements were quick, light, and graceful. She showed them where to strike and how to move together. For the first time, they began to believe they could stand against the Vera. At night, when the work paused, Lyra often sat by the fire in silence. Her thoughts wandered back to her people. She remembered her training, the endless drills, the voice of her commanders telling her that armor was life. She had believed it. She had lived by it. Now she was about to fight against it. The weight of that choice pressed on her, heavier than steel. One evening, Aaron sat beside her. "You look troubled," he said. She gave a small smile. "I wonder if I have betrayed my people. The Vera raised me. They gave me strength. Yet now I raise a hand against them." Aaron shook his head. "You have not betrayed. You have chosen. There is a difference. Betrayal is turning from truth. Choice is finding it." His words sank deep. She looked into the fire, feeling a warmth in her chest. For years, she had carried the weight of her armor. Now she carried the weight of choice, but it felt lighter, because it was her own. The training grew harder each day. Villagers learned to fight as a unit, to strike together, to cover each other. Lyra saw the change in their eyes. They no longer looked at the sky with only fear. They looked with readiness. But in her heart, she knew the test was yet to come. The Vera would not wait long. And when they returned, they would bring more than soldiers. They would bring war. On the seventh night, as the moon cast pale light over the forest, a deep rumble filled the air. The villagers froze. Lyra lifted her head sharply. In the distance, fire streaked across the sky. More ships were coming. The people gathered, fear rising once more. Lyra stepped forward, her staff held high. Her voice carried through the night. "This is the moment. Do not fear the steel. Do not fear the fire. Remember what we built. Remember who we are. Tonight, we do not hide. Tonight, we stand." The sky was lit with fire. The Vera ships descended, each one larger than the last, casting shadows over the forest. Their engines roared like thunder, shaking the ground beneath the villagers' feet. Lyra stood at the edge of the clearing, her staff in hand, her eyes sharp and unyielding. Around her, the villagers gathered, each carrying weapons of wood, stone, and simple metal. They were not warriors by the Vera's standards, yet together they formed a line of courage. Aaron stepped beside her. "They are many," he said. His voice was calm, though he too felt the tension of the moment. "But we are ready." Lyra nodded. "We fight together. Do not let fear rule you. Trust each other, and you will see what strength truly is." The first wave of Vera soldiers landed in the clearing. Their armor gleamed under the sun, and their weapons were ready to strike. They advanced with confidence, expecting humans to scatter. Lyra raised her staff. "Now," she shouted. The villagers leapt into action. Hunters drew arrows, aiming for weak points in the Vera armor. Children pushed traps into place, pits hidden under branches and nets ready to entangle the soldiers. Lyra moved among them, guiding their strikes, showing them where to press and where to dodge. Her movements were swift, free from the weight of steel that had once bound her. The Vera soldiers struck first. Their blades cut through the trees, their armor deflecting arrows and spears. The humans staggered under the force, but they did not break. Each trap, each coordinated strike, slowed the Vera, forcing them to pause and rethink their approach. Lyra faced one of the warriors directly. He towered over her, his armor strong and unyielding. He swung his weapon, expecting to crush her in a single blow. She ducked, rolled, and struck at the joints of his armor with her staff. Sparks flew, and he stumbled backward. His eyes widened in shock. One human, unarmored, had moved faster than his steel could defend. The battle spread through the clearing. Villagers worked together like never before. One pushed a fallen tree to block the path of advancing soldiers. Another used ropes to pull a warrior into a pit. Arrows flew with deadly accuracy. The humans fought not with brute force but with ingenuity, speed, and trust. Each time a Vera soldier fell, the morale of the invaders weakened. Lyra saw Aaron fighting alongside the villagers. He guided them, lifted fallen fighters, and inspired them to keep moving. She felt a surge of pride and warmth. These people were not soldiers, but they were brave beyond measure. They had taken what they had learned from her and made it stronger, turning fear into strength. The Vera leader, Rin, appeared again. His armor was more gleaming than before, and his eyes burned with fury. "You dare fight without steel," he shouted. "You are fools." Lyra stepped forward, facing him without hesitation. "We are alive," she said clearly. "We are not fools. We fight for life, not for metal." Rin attacked with all his might. Lyra dodged, weaving through the forest with the skill of someone free from heavy plates. She struck at the weak points in his armor, not with power, but with precision. Each strike forced him backward. He had trained all his life to fight with steel, but she moved with freedom and purpose he could not anticipate. Around them, the humans continued to fight together. One by one, the Vera soldiers began to falter. They could not break the unity of those who stood without armor. Every arrow, every trap, every coordinated move brought them closer to defeat. Lyra realized that this was more than a battle of strength. It was a battle of belief. The turning point came when the remaining Vera soldiers found themselves trapped in a series of pits and nets. They struggled, unable to use their full strength, their armor slowing them instead of protecting them. Lyra and Aaron moved among them, guiding the humans to finish the fight with care, not cruelty. One by one, the soldiers fell or surrendered, realizing they could not win against unity and courage. Rin, witnessing his warriors defeated by what he called weak humans, felt something unfamiliar, doubt. He raised his weapon one last time, aiming at Lyra. She met his gaze without fear. "You cannot see us as we are," she said. "But one day, you will understand." Before he could strike, Aaron stepped forward with the wooden staff he had made for training. With a swift move, he knocked Rin's weapon aside. The leader stumbled and fell to the ground. Lyra did not strike him further. She knew the battle was over. The Vera retreated, leaving the humans victorious. The villagers cheered, lifting their arms and hugging one another. Lyra stood in the center of the clearing, breathing heavily, yet filled with a sense of accomplishment she had never felt before. She had fought without armor, had guided the humans, and together they had stood against a people who believed only in steel. Aaron approached her. "You have changed them," he said. "Not just in battle, but in life. They see what is possible now." Lyra nodded, looking at the faces of the villagers. They were tired, bruised, and scarred, but their eyes shone with confidence. She realized something profound. Strength was not in armor, not in weapons, not in fear. It was in trust, courage, and the willingness to stand together. For the first time, Lyra looked at her broken armor lying in the shelter. She touched it briefly, feeling its cold, heavy metal. She smiled faintly. It had given her protection, but it had also hidden her true self. Now she knew that her real strength came from within. The humans gathered around her and Aaron, lifting their voices in celebration. Lyra felt a sense of belonging she had never known. These people had welcomed her, taught her, and stood with her as equals. She realized that she had found a home not in steel, but in hearts and hands that worked together. In the days that followed, the village rebuilt. The villagers worked as one, stronger than before. Lyra trained with them, teaching what she had learned about strategy, movement, and courage. Aaron guided them in crafting new defenses, using the forest to their advantage. The story of their victory spread through the forest and beyond, becoming a legend of humans and one Vera warrior who had shown that true strength was not in armor, but in the spirit. And Lyra? She no longer wore her armor. She walked free, exposed in body but stronger in heart than ever before. She had been stripped of her steel, yet she had gained a greater gift, the power to inspire, to lead, and to see that life itself was the greatest armor of all. The stars above shone brighter than ever. Lyra raised her staff to the sky, feeling the wind against her skin. For the first time, she was not bound by tradition, not weighed by expectation, not defined by metal. She was alive. She was free. And she was ready for whatever the future would bring.